Good afternoon. Welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. It's Wednesday, the 20th of November, 2024, and this is program number 1287 of the Lunchroom. I'm your host, Calixte George Jr. Now, of course, if you're listening to us on 101.1 FM radio, we'd like you to keep us locked on, but you can also get us at our website, rcistlucia.com. That's the URL. And we are also streaming live on Facebook. You just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International on Facebook. And please be sure to like and share that link as well with your friends and family. And don't forget, you can call in to tell us what's on your plate. The number to do so is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And you can also reach us on WhatsApp. As you should know by now, that number is 724 0008 724 0008. We're going to send out some birthday greetings today. First to Mr. Neil Leos. Happy birthday to you, Neil. And we're hoping that you're having a fantastic birthday celebration and counting up the years. So a good one for you. And of course, as well to Miss Felicia Pierre. Happy birthday to you, and wishing you an absolutely wonderful birthday celebration as you enjoy your very, very special day. We also want to send out birthday greetings to Taj Weeks today. Happy birthday to you. Hope it's a great one. And also to Mr. Timothy Albert. Happy birthday to you, sir. Hope you're having a great birthday celebration. We take a little bit of a look into history for the day. Back in the year 1762, the Khan of the Uyghurs, his name was Bogu Kagan, and he conquered Luoyang, the capital of the Chinese Empire. 1695 on this day saw Zumbi, the last king of the Quilombo de los Palmares in early Brazil and a former slave. He was executed. In fact, he was decapitated with his head displayed on a pike to dispel any legends of his immortality. In the year 1815, on this day, the Second Treaty of Paris, or France, had its borders reduced to those of 1790 and agreed to pay 700 million francs in indemnities to end the Napoleonic Wars. 1917, on this day, the first successful use of a tank in battle, and that was at the Battle of Cambrai in World War I, where Great Britain used new technology to break through German lines. 1945, more outcomes of the war, this time World War II. The Nuremberg war trials began as 24 Nazi leaders were put on trial before judges representing the victorious Allied powers. And in 1986, on this day, the World Health Organization, WHO, announced the first global effort to combat AIDS. We now move on to our dish of the day.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program for today. And we do hope that you're having a good one. Now, one of the matters, of course, that has been very topical for a number of people is the issue of the safety on our roads and adherence to the laws when it comes to the use of our roads and our road network, our road system. And of course, we all depend on it, whether we are walking, whether we're pedestrians, or whether we are driving, we're commuters heading to work, or whatever the case may be. And of course, so it's definitely a point of concern when we're noting the number of accidents and in fact very fatal accidents, too many of them certainly over the years. In fact, the Ministry of Infrastructure put out a statement recently, and that was in conjunction with the anniversary or Remembrance Day for road traffic victims, which was actually on the 17th of November. And in that statement, the Ministry of Infrastructure, Ports and Transport highlighted the pressing need for caution and safety on the roads, noting that the island had recorded 22 road fatalities this year alongside numerous injuries. And according to Lenita Joseph, the department's permanent secretary, quote, the statistics of collisions for this year to date indicate that pedestrians and passengers have been at highest risk due in large part to the increasing number of incidents involving passenger vehicles. Speeding, as well as improper use of the roads, she stated, were among the biggest culprits causing crashes. Officials stressed that the effects of road accidents extend far beyond the moment of impact, often resulting in long term emotional, physical, and economic devastation. In addition to victims, family members and first responders are frequently left grappling with the lasting consequences of traffic accidents. And that point is so very, very true. We often don't recognize the long term impacts that these incidents happen. Quite often, it is sensational. We are driving on the road, we may actually see some sort of an accident or an incident. And of course, we know what happens quite often. People slow down to look at what's happening and remark and try to figure out in our minds perhaps who was wrong or what exactly occurred, to get a sense of what it was. But of course, in too many cases, we are seeing tremendous impact in terms of physical injury and, unfortunately, the loss of life. 22 road fatalities for the year to date. Certainly a pretty high number. And of course, the point being made by the ministry is that there are a lot of different reasons for this, but the cost implication is certainly very real in terms of our healthcare system, and in fact the impact that it has on families overall. To continue that story coming from the St. Lucia Times, quote, our emergency and health services are constantly under pressure to respond to and provide post-trauma care, said Joseph. She added the economic costs associated with the high risk of road incidents is manifesting in increased premiums for motor vehicle insurance. The department also pointed to the rising number of vehicles on the island as a contributing factor to the growing risks of accidents. With an average of 300 vehicles landed monthly in St. Lucia, the level of exposure and probability of crashes will continue to rise, resulting in an increase in the number and severity of injuries, Joseph highlighted. While the Department of Infrastructure, Ports and Transport acknowledged that individuals must take personal responsibility, that is, drivers, pedestrians, and passengers alike, it also emphasized the need for heightened enforcement on road safety laws. Joseph says the department hopes these measures will send a strong and clear message of intolerance for continued disregard for road traffic rules. To address these challenges, the department says it has initiated the development of a road safety policy aimed at providing targeted responses to traffic-related issues. This move aligns with the observance of Remembrance Day for road traffic victims, which they describe as an opportunity to provide a platform for road traffic victims and their families. To remember all persons killed and seriously injured in road traffic crashes, and to advocate for more decisive actions to prevent road traffic deaths and injuries. Looking ahead, Joseph issued this appeal. Quote, as the festive season approaches, we take the opportunity to encourage all road users to be careful, be safe, and be responsible. And this is also a matter that was taken up quite recently by the Prime Minister, issuing a statement regarding the matter of road safety. And we definitely have to do better as a country when it comes to this issue. And it's has multiple issues. There are multiple threads involved in road safety. One of them, of course, is the issue of the laws. And I have heard sometimes people say that, we have all the laws that we need. It's just a matter of actually enforcing those laws. And there is some truth to that. We do have laws with respect to the issue of the use of motor vehicles and in terms of the use of roads. But some of these laws are, in fact, somewhat outdated. And they, in fact, do need to be given attention to by the island's legislature. We certainly do need to be looking at how we can improve on the laws that we have and how, in fact, they can be properly enforced. The issue, for instance, of drinking while driving is a very well established issue globally. And of course, we've been hearing about the impacts, of course, of that because alcohol consumption, excessive alcohol consumption beyond the recommended limits impairs an individual's cognition, the ability to see properly, the focus on the road. A lot of things are, in fact, impacted there. And of course, we also do have the other major issue today, which is that the use of mobile phones or devices in general on the roads of St. Lucia. Now, there are a lot of things that, even beyond that, I'm not even too sure whether our road laws actually capture these matters. For example, in some countries, many developed countries, the issue of child safety is a major one when it comes to children in vehicles, right? And of course, today is International Children's Day, so it perhaps is pretty good that we can raise that matter today. But in many countries, children under a certain age are bound to use car seats. They have to be properly strapped up. The car seats have to be inspected. It has to be approved. There's a whole process involving that, and these things are taken very seriously because, of course, it is quite easy to potentially see how children can get injured in a vehicle for different reasons, right? And it's obviously happening to adults. Children can be even more at risk of injury if they, in fact, are not properly strapped in St. Lucian roads. Now, of course, some people may argue, well, these laws are for countries that have motorways, expressways, and vehicles are going at 50 and 60 and 70 and 80 miles an hour, right? But the reality is that it doesn't take very much speed necessarily to be able to have a significant injury or accident. And then sometimes you could be the safest driver on the road and somebody else is not exercising that level of care and, in fact, ends up causing an accident involving you. So that matter is certainly a very, very serious one. But I don't think currently that we have any set regulations regarding that. I could stand to be corrected, but I don't recall seeing anything in that regard with respect to the children and car seats and what have you. And let's face it, I have seen on St. Lucian roads literally the driver with a child in their lap, right? And driving on the road. So we have these, situations. It may be one thing you may think, well, okay, so the passenger is holding onto the child, but sometimes it's even the driver themselves who may be doing that because maybe they don't have a car seat and they want to, bring their children somewhere. So those situations are real issues in terms of safety on our roads. Another one, of course, is really the issue of enforcement. Not well, I mean, the speed is one issue, of course, and the issue of alcohol is another one. And I think there was, of course, mentioned, in fact, by the Prime Minister making the point, the issue of breathalyzers, being required. Now, I don't think, I'm not sure, maybe the Royal St. Lucia Police Force does have the equipment necessary to do so. But then the next point was, of course, the issue of legislation. Now, I know we've been speaking about, and I think you would know too, that we've been speaking about the issue of drunk driving and needing breathalyzer legislation for some time now. It was a big issue back in Trinidad. That must have been a good 10, maybe even 15 years now, right? And so it is something that many countries have already introduced. It doesn't require reinventing the wheel. There's best practice out there, no doubt about it, to begin looking at these issues regarding drunk driving and excessive use of alcohol and the impact that it's having on our roads. Now, I don't know that we have the data. That's the thing to say, well, how many accidents are necessarily as a result of drunk driving. In the case of St. Lucia, it would be very useful, no doubt, to look at that. But I think you can look around the world, perhaps, and we can see, maybe look at some situations where it's not enforced, and what the result is, and whether in fact there are higher cases of accidents and serious accidents in that regard. Because it's not a nice thing, no doubt, for an individual to have to hear that a family member, a loved one, a parent, a child is the victim of, well, is involved in an accident, ends up perhaps being maimed, maybe losing a limb, maybe even, in fact, even dying, right? And it's the result of somebody out there who was simply drinking too much and decided to get behind the wheel, right? And we've seen these cases. May not have happened necessarily this year, but we know that there have been cases in St. Lucia where drunk driving has, in fact, been the reason and the cause for accidents on our roads. So it is certainly a major issue that needs to be given attention by the Parliament to put in the kind of legislation that is required so that the police can, in fact, go out there. And of course, they have to be equipped and resourced to be able to do that. One of the things too, and of course, the police get lots of blame sometimes on these matters. And I think the point that was being made by the Commissioner of Police, the Acting Commissioner of Police, Mr. Vern Gard, sometimes it's an issue of, yes, it's an issue of numbers, but it's an issue of how some of those resources are, in fact, deployed. And I suspect the level of manpower, of human resources in the traffic department may not necessarily be commensurate with the significance of the importance of transport, the transport sector in our country right now. And so quite possibly the Royal St. Lucia Police Force and the Ministry of Home Affairs do need to look at that a little bit more. Do we really have sufficient numbers within the traffic division, the traffic department, to be able to support the kind of work that they, in fact, need to do on our roads? I mean, we read it from the PS, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Infrastructure, Ms. Joseph, pointing out the number of vehicles coming in on an average per month. I mean, if you work it out for a year, that suggests that you've got maybe 3,600 odd vehicles coming into the country every single year. Now, yes, some of those will be replacement vehicles for existing vehicles in stock, and people are retiring old vehicles, but I'm pretty certain that is probably suggesting that we're seeing an uptick in the total number of vehicles on the island's roads, right? More and more individuals want to have access to vehicles. That ratio of people to cars, right, or cars to people, I should say, is increasing, and it is something that invariably means that more people will be on the road. The likelihood, the probabilities of accidents are going to increase. There was a time when you probably might, on a Sunday, you might be driving up from Castries to Grosley, and you might, just see a few vehicles, once every minute or so along your route, and you could be going at a steady speed, easily maybe doing 40 miles an hour. That's not even the case anymore. Sometimes even on Sundays or Sunday evenings, you end up with a lot of traffic. We see the amount of traffic that exists on weekends, on Saturdays, all day, from about 9 o'clock straight through into the mid afternoon on the Castries Grosley Highway, the Sir Julian Hunt Highway. So there's a lot of traffic, a lot of vehicles on the road. And once you have that, it therefore means that you're going to have more possibilities of conflict, more possibilities of individuals suffering from road rage. And that's an issue that a lot of people face. They've got temper issues, and they take it out with the machine that they have control over, right? Which is the car, and sometimes somebody overtakes them, and or somebody is driving too slow, whatever the case may be, and they exit a level of anger on the road, and that quite often leads to a lot of problems. Emotions really should not be what is driving our drivers out there, right? We should be following the laws, following the regulations, and being mindful that there's lots of risks out there. And so that's what should be happening. But we know the reality. That's what's going on. You've got a lot of inexperienced drivers, a lot of younger drivers, maybe first-time drivers, and then, let's face it, we've got learners on the road. A lot of instances where we may feel frustrated and we'll want to take over a vehicle or of whatever the case may be, and potential for conflicts exist in this regard. So that's the reality of what we're dealing with in terms of these rising numbers of vehicles and the likely consequences on the roads. And these are not issues that would only be on the highways, right? Because the highways are congested. And what do we see happening? People are now trying to get around, looking for alternative routes, and they're getting on to very narrow secondary roads, country roads, to try to beat the traffic, and they're winding. Sometimes they're longer routes, and so therefore, to compensate the time, you want to drive a little faster, and then let's face it, these tend to be also areas where we have lots of residential developments along some of these roads, and so we see the impact in terms of, as mentioned, the impacts on pedestrians. Of course, the other major issue that we have to deal with, and this has been long-standing, is the issue of the lack of proper pedestrian infrastructure on our roads. Roads cannot certainly be only about asphalt, especially when these roads are in built-up areas, in residential communities, in areas where we know that people will be walking to the store, walking to the to the playing field or to the health center. So we've got to be mindful of that too. And so it's definitely the work of the Ministry of Infrastructure as the entity under which our transport is handled, our road infrastructure is handled, definitely is cut out for them. And so it is going to require a lot of cooperation, because, of course, they don't control the enforcement issues directly. That, of course, requires cooperation with the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. I do want to commend the efforts of the new acting commissioner, because they have begun taking action on the matter of derelict vehicles on the roads. That's a big one. That's a major issue that we have on our island right now. I recall some years ago, the member of parliament for the DA4 area, who is Mr. Joachim Henry. I think there was some effort with him and the St. Lucia Solid Waste Management Authority to look at some derelict vehicles along that Old Victoria Road, so the road that connects from the Mon heading up towards Kachime, Twapito, right? Tiroche, that road. And there are a lot of points where there were a lot of derelict vehicles just, parked on the road. And we can well understand the problems with these situations, because already our roads are pretty narrow, right? A lot of these roads are not more than 5 meters, right, of carriageway, and that's barely 2 lanes. And so when you've got a situation of a vehicle or lots of vehicles parked along those roads, you end up with lots of different points of conflict, different points where individuals are obviously veering into the other lane to pass, and it's problematic. It's problematic, and sad to say, a lot of it has to do, of course, with garages, auto repair shops, which have property, but perhaps they don't have enough land for what they're doing, and you just invariably see, you see two vehicles, and then you see another one, and then you see another one, and before you see it, there are a whole host of vehicles on those roads. Effectively, the road is being used as an extension of those businesses, right? And maybe they're salvaging parts, whatever the case may be. So it ends up being a problem for motorists and for traffic flow, for us to be able to safely commute around our already very limited road infrastructure. So it's certainly a matter that needs to be taken very seriously, and perhaps even the issue of regulating, where individuals and how individuals operate some of these roadside assistance, if you want to call them that, type garages that are pretty prevalent in so very many communities. So we certainly have to look at some of these issues and give them the due interest and concern, because we're seeing the impact in terms of loss of life. We're not even feeling it, maybe because we may not necessarily have been a victim directly, but it gets to a point where you're knowing somebody whose family has been impacted. I should perhaps even also mention the issue of our cows, right? We seem to make progress sometimes on certain matters, and then we seem to regress, over time. And we have been talking about the issue of cows and livestock for quite some time. And this is a decades old issue that exists with respect to the matter of cows. And I think we all know that particular area at Shock, where it would appear that quite often these animals are almost feral. They're almost moving around freely. One day you might see them in the by the roundabout, chomping on some grass. Maybe you might see them in the large lot in front of the cinema. Another day they might be waiting for a bus by the Babano bus stand. At one point they might be down by the GTM. I think I saw them there last night, yesterday evening, in that area. So they're pretty much almost, they're on the beach sometimes as well, perhaps taking a suntan or whatever the case may be. But they're clearly just roaming, And invariably they're sometimes roaming on the roads, and we do know the dangers of those situations, particularly of course when you got these the black cows are even more dangerous, because at nighttime it's even more difficult to actually see them, and you end up with accidents on in that area. And so that's a clear hotspot. The running joke is that, well, if the cow hits you, or you hit the cow, then you should probably just take the cow, and somehow that is compensation. But we know that's not a very practical situation, and it certainly is one of the matters that requires some level of attention to ensure. I mean, is it an issue that we don't have enough rope for the cows? Maybe somebody needs to help out the farmers in some regards in terms of trying to bring some order to that matter. I don't know if the veterinary services division has the capacity to pick them up and bring them down to the livestock station, whatever the case may be. But clearly, it's another major risk that we are dealing with right here. We don't have deer, right? So we don't have moose on the road and wild animals of that scale that would endanger individuals in that way. But we do have the issue of cows, and our bovine friends are not no wiser, really. It's not their fault. So it's a risk and a danger to them as well, and so unnecessarily so. So that issue is one of those certainly that also needs to be dealt with, amongst the many other challenges that we have with our road network and our road transport system here in St. Lucia. So that's our dish of the day. When we come back, we'll take in our weather report, and then we'll come back to take in some calls.
This has been The Daily Dish.
Thank you, Calixte. It's now time for the weather report, and the weather is brought to you by Island Style Thailand Bath.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island Style. We got the time that will make you happy. Island Style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive in Island Style. We have tiles and insets, pieces and ground. Everything you need is on the outside. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. Quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Belarus and Rodney Bay on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewport Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
Well, let us now take a look at the latest weather report as of 12 noon. 12 noon today for the 20th of November, 2024. Our forecast to this hour is Lemuel O'Shaughnessy. The forecast for St. Lucia valid for the next 24 hours. The winds will be blowing between the northeast and the southeast near 10 miles per hour or 17 kilometers per hour, becoming lighter and calmer times. And the weather, partly cloudy to cloudy at times with scattered showers, which may be heavy in some areas, and a chance of isolated thunderstorms. Residents and motorists in areas prone to flooding and landslides are advised to be vigilant. So again, for the forecast for St. Lucia valid for the next 24 hours, winds blowing between the northeast and the southeast near 10 miles per hour or 17 kilometers per hour, becoming lighter or calmer times. And the weather, partly cloudy to cloudy at times with scattered showers, which may be heavy in some areas, and a chance of isolated thunderstorms. And there's an advisory for our residents and motorists in areas prone to flooding and landslides to be vigilant. Marine forecast for seas in a 25-mile or 40-kilometer radius from St. Lucia. We are presently experiencing low tide, both at the Castries Harbour and the VFO Bay. The high tide for the Castries Harbour will be at 23 minutes before 7 tonight, and the VFO Bay's high tide will be at 16 before 8 tonight. The sea is slight to moderate, the waves 2 to 5 feet, the same as 0.6 to 1.5 meters in open waters. The Lesser Antilles, partly cloudy to cloudy at times with scattered showers, which may be heavy in some locations, and isolated thunderstorms. And the tropical weather outlook, light to moderate easterly winds are expected to continue across the eastern Caribbean region for the next couple of days, and moist and unstable conditions associated with a frontal boundary and a trough system will continue to generate cloudiness with scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms over the Lesser Antilles during the forecast period. Tropical cyclone formation is not expected over the tropical Atlantic during the next 7 days. Again, light to moderate easterly winds expected to continue across the eastern Caribbean region for the next couple of days. And moist and unstable conditions associated with a frontal boundary and a trough system will continue to generate cloudiness and scattered showers and also isolated thunderstorms over the Lesser Antilles during the forecast period. An advisory also out, remember, for residents and motorists in areas prone to flooding and landslides. You continue to be vigilant. And that's the official weather report. Join us again in the morning at around 6:30. Our next report from the Met Service is due on the station at that time. Thank you very much, Lemiel, for the update. Weather was brought to you by Island Style Talent Bath.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Island style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style, whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style, oh yeah. We make your dream come alive in Island style.
We have tiles and princess, pieces and ground. Everything you need is on the outside. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality rice, service choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Belarus and Rodney Bay on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's gas station on the Library Viewfort Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
And welcome back to our program here for today. We've got about 18 minutes to go before the hour of 2 o'clock at the Lunchroom. Of course, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046, as well as our WhatsApp number, 724-0008. Again, 724-0008. We want to send out some condolences to a member of the Radio Caribbean International RCI family, and that is to Mr. Orlando Phillip, who's the producer here. And unfortunately, Orlando lost his father recently. And so, in fact, we want to express our condolences, our sympathy, extend commiserations to his entire family. In fact, the funeral service is this afternoon at the Basilica Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception, and so we certainly wish them strength at this certainly very, very difficult time of losing a loved one. In fact, I think, Orlando was actually the second individual on staff who has lost a father over the past month. Certainly want to extend condolences as well to our other DJ on staff here, DJ Play, who also lost his dad quite recently. Now, of course, the conversation regarding the matter of traffic is one that is, finding a lot of resonance in Facebook or on social media. And there was actually a very interesting post recently, a couple of days ago. I don't know if I can mention his name, but I don't think you'd mind, Mr. Mark Hennicott, who in fact noted the following, given some recommendation here regarding the issue of traffic and giving traffic information. It is conceivable that the repeat of the chaotic situation for motorists who try to traverse Castries between the roundabouts at Shock in the northeast and Bannans in the southwest today can be avoided if only the CCTV camera system installed around the city has the capability of monitoring real time the movement of traffic at key intersections. What if, for instance, drivers can access apps or websites which provide live coverage of traffic at intervals along routes within the city limits? That way, drivers and motorists can take informed and timely decisions to follow alternative routes well in advance to avoid delays and backups caused by accidents or incidents. That way, also, everyone, including drivers of public and private vehicles, can participate in the process of traffic management. And of course, this is something that we know many countries around the world look at very seriously, how to provide traffic information. You recall maybe back in the 80s and 90s in large cities around the United States, the news broadcaster would even have a helicopter, and they'd go up into the sky, and try to see what the traffic was looking like along the route, and they'd give traffic advisories on where there are delays, where there are stops, and whatnot. And I think the principle is simply to capture the information and being able to provide it to the driving public in a very quick and speedy manner. Now, I mean, technology has advanced, certainly. Now, even right now, for everybody who has a mobile phone, right? Pretty much that mobile phone, believe it or not, is actually providing lots of information, including your geographic information, right? So Google, and thanks to Google and Google Maps, once you've got that on your phone, you can in fact use that app, Google Maps. There is something called a traffic layer. And of course, the exact location of where you can find that will vary depending on whether you have an Android or you have an Apple phone. But that's available, and you can actually, well, of course, with Apple, they have their own map system too. But you could pretty much get it. It's called a traffic layer, and it shows in a color-coded way the state of traffic in the country, right? So that is a very, very useful tool to be able to see, where there are delays right now, or where you have very high volumes of traffic. I mean, so I'm doing that right now, for instance, and it looks like in the area heading north from around Manuel Street, just after the Inner Relief Road, where the Inner Relief Road meets Manuel Street, right around that gas station there, near the old BGA. There's already a lineup of traffic from there stretching up to the Jean-Baptiste Street Conway roundabout, and then traffic continues to be pretty heavy heading north up until you get to about the Fisheries gas station, right? So you can get a good sense of where the traffic is. And of course, yeah, there's lots of traffic in the Marisol area. From the Marisol Gap, it looks like it's crawling right up to the Computer World Corinth intersection, right about there. It looks like it's crawling heading up north. And then there's a pretty good bit of traffic heading down south as well, into that same area from Rodney Bay into the Bois de Wage area, into that Computer World Junction. So you in fact can go online with your phone once you've got Google Maps, and you utilize you put on that traffic layer. Usually it's two little squares on the side. You can click on it and it'll tell you what you can use, map details. And for St. Lucia, it works, right? So it actually can provide you with some very useful information. And it is relatively in real time. Obviously, sometimes there are some delays because it really is dependent on really the GPS pings coming back from the phones of the individuals who are on the roads. And so basically, depending on how quickly your phone is moving from one point to the next, it can estimate whether you're moving, whether you're stationary, so that's how they actually do so. Very, very powerful technology that is already available all around the world. So, I mean, if you want to see the situation over in Fort de France in Martinique, you can also go across there and you could be able to see, well, okay, there's a fair bit of traffic in the Lamete area, and Avenue Maurice Bishop. There's a bit of traffic coming in there. So you can actually see on the Laro card, you can see the amount of traffic that's on on all the major roads in pretty much every part of the world that allows it and is enables it. And so it is a very, very powerful tool. So maybe it's a good idea before you head out on your journey to use that, because I'm pretty certain, maybe I don't know the exact statistic, but the majority of St. Lucians now are using a smartphone, and there are lots of opportunities that you have to be able to actually do so. Of course, the point that Mr. Hennicott is making is also pretty important in terms of the issue of enforcement, right? And so traffic cameras can certainly help in the matter of tickets, right? And if somebody is speeding and you've got the traffic cameras available at known areas where individuals tend to speed, all right, you can in fact allow for some improvements there. Now, I mean, that is something that can help tremendously, right? Quite often we think that the first solution when we have an issue of somebody, or many accidents happening in a particular area, is that we want to put a speed bump, right? That tends to be what we do here in St. Lucia. And perhaps in some areas, definitely it can be entertained. But I think what speed bumps do is that they really slow down traffic to a very, almost snail space, right? And we can see the impacts that has on traffic in particular areas. I mean, the Grosley area, for example, on that Castries Grosley Highway, around the Grosley area, the number of speed bumps, and you see how very much, even on an afternoon, traffic coming from Cap Estate heading south is pretty slow, and that has a lot to do with the presence of speed bumps. And of course, you do have junctions there, so you do want to slow down the traffic to some degree. But then you don't necessarily want to slow it down completely, right? What you want to do is certainly just to ensure that people are not speeding. And so there are areas where perhaps that could very well be an interesting attempt at a pilot. And I'm thinking particularly around along the Castries Vieux-Fort Highway in the vicinity of Bexar, the Deglo area, more specifically, the Ferron Deglo area, where you have clearly, consistently, right, accidents are happening in that area. And we definitely have to thank the company, the business that has the cameras located in that area, and the number of accidents that it has captured, right? And we can see what has happened in those areas. Perhaps if in fact individuals know that they're going to be speeding cameras there watching, in fact, whether they're going to be speeding, and if they are found to be speeding, then they get a ticket, right, for that. And people, of course, know that this is there, it's their proper signage. Hopefully they will in fact slow down and exercise some greater care. Of course, there are other issues too in that area where the Deglo Tuapito Road meets that Castries Vieux-Fort Highway, and that is because there's no turning lane. There's no right turn lane available for traffic that is heading west along or north along the Castries Beaufort Highway. So maybe a look at that junction is certainly also necessary moving forward. So, of course, as we were saying, the issues of preventing traffic accidents, improving road safety, will certainly require us doing certain things which we've been speaking about for a very long time, but in fact have not really actioned over the many decades, and I think it is certainly an opportunity now to begin looking at it very seriously and to begin making things happen in that way. I think we are now beginning to see the economic impact in the fact that the insurance premiums for so many of the insurers is in fact heading upwards, right? So it is making it more costly to be on the road, and so that is certainly telling us something about the state of play, right? The insurers are clearly saying way too many accidents. They've got to be putting out too many claims, and so therefore their response obviously is to increase the premiums, and that of course is does not benefit the average person who wants to who's driving safely on the road, perhaps, but we are in fact feeling the impact of the reckless driving of others. So the matter of enforcement is definitely a very serious one, and perhaps the time has come for us to have that highway patrol, right? The actual police monitoring these hot spots. And that's what happens, of course, in many countries around the world. People know that the police have these little speed traps. They wait a certain area and they're waiting to see whether, in fact, you're speeding or driving, recklessly, and they take the necessary action as well. So let us perhaps maybe there's a need for a bit of a national dialogue on the entire matter of road safety, and from the perspective that it's causing loss of economic value, because we get stuck in the accidents, we get stuck behind the traffic that these accidents are causing. There's loss of time on the road. There's the impact, as we were saying, in terms of the insurance premiums going up. There's the impact in terms of our health sector suffering and having to handle more of these serious injuries. And so it certainly is having a cumulative negative cost on our economy and of course the quality of life that we're enjoying. It also means too that we're going to have to begin thinking about the whole matter of our public transport sector. And you may not think that it's necessarily directly connected, but it would help certainly if we had a good, reliable public transport sector, which can in fact mean that individuals will drive less and in fact would result in less congestion and hopefully as well safer roads. So lots to think about in respect of this issue of traffic safety, road safety, and it is I think something that as a country we can deal with, and I think as well, especially given the fact that we're talking about crime, this is one of the areas where I think you can easily make an impact dealing with it, because look at what happens, what we're seeing. Lots of people with vehicles on the road that may not necessarily have the right number plates. We've got a lot of issues with respect to that, right? So that's where there's control. That's where the state has the opportunity to control and enforce. Because let's face it, the criminals have to move around too, right? So definitely, it's one of those areas that is a good point to tackle in the fight against crime as well. That's our program here today for the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. Hope you can join us for another one tomorrow, God willing. I'm your host, Calixte George Jr., saying goodbye.